Sweden's government has declared itself the first feminist government in the world. Yes, really. According to the government website, a feminist government ensures that a gender equality perspective is brought into policymaking on a broad front, both nationally and internationally. Women and men must have the same power to shape society and their own lives, end quote. So, when that feminist government visited Iran, one might expect that the empowered women in this empowered government would be empowered enough to avoid donning the hijab, the Islamic female head covering. Nope. Meeting with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, the women universally put on headscarves. Apparently, feminism only demonstrates its strength when dealing with Western men who are basically willing to work with feminists, not when dealing with patriarchal societies intent on the subjugation and repression of women. As UN Watch reports, quote, Trade Minister Anne Lind and other female members walked before Iranian President Rouhani on Saturday wearing hijabs, chadors, and long coats in deference to Iran's oppressive and unjust modesty laws which make the hijab compulsory. Such a show of submission follows hard on Deputy Prime Minister Isabella Lövin explaining to the world that Donald Trump represented a threat to female rights. This is kind of indicative of the focus of Western feminists. With the vast majority of sexism wiped off the map in the West, women in the United States comprise a majority of college students and graduate students and earn more than men in 147 out of 150 highly populated cities if they have no kids. Instead of turning internationally, the feminist left has found new windmills to pursue, forcing other people to pay for women's child rearing, fighting for the ability to kill babies in the womb at any stage of pregnancy. That means abandoning women living in actual patriarchal autocracies. So, why won't Western feminists fight for women living under tyranny? Because that would mean empowering men in their own countries to fight radical Islam. And that would undermine the pacifistic view of Western civilization that too many feminists think is a prereq for female equality. A muscular defense of Western civilization makes feminists uncomfortable. They see that as merely the flip side of the Islamist coin, which is why the only time they bother ripping radical Islam is when they're saying Donald Trump is a member of the Taliban. The result is that women who are actually oppressed have no feminist allies in the West. And that means they're on their own, as those same feminists kowtow to their would-be oppressors. I'm Ben Shapiro. This is The Ben Shapiro Show. Alrighty, so we are going to get to SNL. We're going to save the Grammys for tomorrow, I think. There's a lot going on at the Grammys, and I want to do Deconstructing the Culture. We'll do a full-scale deconstruction of the Grammys tomorrow on the show, but we're going to focus on SNL. We're going to talk about Stephen Miller's bombshell debut on the Sunday shows and what that means for the Trump administration. We're going to talk about the left going nuts. But first, we have to say thank you to our advertisers over at Blue Apron. So if you are in need of a fresh meal and something, and you want to cook, you want to make the meal yourself, you want to make sure that it's healthy, you want to make sure that it's fresh, Blue Apron is the way to go. So the way that it works is that you go to Blue Apron and they have a bunch of recipes from which you can choose. They send you a new recipe every night if you want, and it's like $10 per meal per person. They send you all the ingredients in the mail. So instead of you going to the grocery store and stocking up on ingredient, half of which will go rotten in your fridge over the course of the next 3 months, Blue Apron sends you already made all of the various ingredients that are going to go into the dish. They send you the recipe as well, and then you can make all of the meals in under 45 minutes. So it's a great deal, $10 a person, and it's become a huge thing in LA. Like everybody in LA is using Blue Apron, and they have a freshness guarantee. They promise every ingredient in the delivery is ready to cook when it arrives, or they will make it right. And you can choose from a new variety of recipes every single week, or you can let their culinary team surprise you, and they don't repeat recipes within a year, so you're never going to get bored. So my wife has started looking at the Blue Apron recipes to copy them for kosher audiences, specifically because the fact is that, we have the same meal like every Tuesday, and it's really horrifying. So Blue Apron makes sure that doesn't happen anymore, and Blue Apron can do that for you as well. Some of their upcoming meals sound fantastic. It's like udon noodle soup with miso and soft-boiled eggs, crispy barramundi with quinoa and roasted carrot salad, and then some pork dishes that sound good if you're into pork, if that's your thing. They have cashew chicken stir-fry with tango mandarins and jasmine rice. I mean, these are really top-notch recipes, and you're going to want to check them out. It's blueapron.com/Shapiro, blueapron.com/Shapiro. And when you do that, again, you're letting them know that we sent you, which is, it helps us out so that they know that they ought to continue advertising with us. And it also means that they know that that you're listening to the show, which is great. So blueapron.com/Shapiro, and you get the first 3 meals free, which is really the best part of the deal. So the first 3 meals you get free with free shipping if you go to blueapron.com/Shapiro. So it's like a $30 value. So that's pretty solid value just for using our promo code. Okay, so lots to get to today, but we want to start with SNL. So this is the first week in like 5, 6, 8, 1,000 weeks Donald Trump has not tweeted about Saturday Night Live on Saturday night. And there's a reason for that, and that's because Saturday Night Live has basically turned into the Annoy Donald Trump show. instead of them actually doing funny things, they've decided it's more important to do things that irritate Donald Trump. And there's always been this aspect to SNL. I mean, going all the way back to the 1970s when they did Chevy Chase as Gerald Ford, and he'd bump his head on things, and he was like a clumsy oaf, even though Gerald Ford was actually the most athletic president we ever had. He was an All-American linebacker at University of Michigan in football, Gerald Ford. But they portrayed him as a bumbling oaf, and it worked. The SNL has always been sort of gadflyish against Republican presidents. They don't care about Democrat presidents. They never made fun of Bill Clinton particularly much. They had Daryl Hammond, but it was kind of weak. Obama, they never even touched. I mean, Obama was just a worship choir for 8 years. Well, now Trump is president, and that means that they are going to dedicate all of their strength and all of their minimal skill toward targeting President Trump. And here's the thing. There's so much about the fact that Donald Trump is president that is actually funny, okay? It's like there's a lot that's funny about this. Donald Trump is a funny human. Okay, everybody is sort of funny, but Trump takes it to a new level. Like his tweets are crazy sometimes, and whenever he talks with this rich self-assurance, even if he doesn't know what he's talking about. And he says things that are outrageous, and he has a sense of humor. Like there's a lot about Donald Trump that you could make fun of, and a lot of the people who surround him are funny. So Sean Spicer is his press secretary, is a funny guy inherently because he's sort of this insecure guy who's playing macho on TV, and that's why when Melissa McCarthy last week did her impression of Sean Spicer, it was actually really funny. But now SNL has decided that they're going to go full scale annoy Trump. So we're not going to try to be funny so much as just annoy Donald Trump a lot. So it begins SNL on Saturday night with Leslie Jones. So Leslie Jones has become sort of this bugaboo of the right ever since Milo went to war with her on Twitter over her role in Ghostbusters, which is a terrible film. And so there were a lot of people saying, wouldn't it be funny to tweak Donald Trump by having Leslie Jones play Donald Trump on TV, this black woman who's very much to the left. Wouldn't it be really funny? So they constructed a skit just for Leslie Jones to play Donald Trump. And again, I guess the idea here was just to tick off Trump so that he'd tweet about it. And it doesn't really work very well. This whole skit, this one's actually not one of the worst ones. This one's actually okay, but it's again designed to tick off Trump, right? And people were saying this beforehand. The whole reason for casting Leslie Jones to tick off Trump. And then they brought Melissa McCarthy back, I guess under the theory that once you beat a dead horse to death, you can continue beating it until it actually decays into just bone. So they brought Melissa McCarthy back to do Sean Spicer again. And again, it's okay, but like, really? Aren't you bored with this already? Like, why don't you bring this back 3 weeks from now? You got to bring it back every single week? They're beating the dead horse, and it's not, again, are these the end of the world? No, but the entire show was dedicated to Trump. This is only the second of 4 sketches that were dedicated to Donald Trump. Here's Alec Baldwin doing a People's Court parody of Donald Trump. Again, it's like all they have to do, and they don't really care whether people think it's funny or not. They really only care whether Donald Trump gets annoyed enough to tweet about it. So I guess in that they failed because he didn't tweet about it. I really am not. I'm not a fan of Alec Baldwin's Donald Trump, and I think that the writing for it is really weak. So this was only the third of 4, and finally we get to the one that's actually really bad. The one that was actually really, really bad was Kellyanne Conway. So they've been ripping on Kellyanne Conway for a while, which is fine with me. I'm not a big Kellyanne Conway fan, but the way that they ripped on her on Saturday night really was truly egregious. What they did is they suggested that CNN wouldn't have her on because she was dishonest, because there was that story last week about this, and when they did the skit, instead of just doing it like a horror sketch, like she's haunting Jake Tapper at CNN, they tried to sexualize it, and it really is kind of insulting and gross. Here's what it looked like. Again, this is the worst of it. So they've gone so far off the rails now that Kellyanne Conway, who's married and has 4 children, they're trying to play her as though the reason that she's trying to get on TV is because of sex or something, and now she's trying to hit up Jake Tapper, by the way, also married with 2 children. If they did this to somebody on the left, everybody would rightly cry sexism. Right? It is. I mean, I'm sorry. This is sexist. It's sexist to take a woman who is on TV. You may not agree with her. You may think she's terrible. You may think she lies a lot. But the idea that she is some sort of sex fiend who's going over to people's apartments and sexing it up with random dudes on the news is really pretty gross. And this just demonstrates how far the left is willing to go in order to pillory the right. And what they're doing is they're actually undermining their own credibility. There are plenty of credibility issues with the Trump team, and we're going to get to some of those in a little bit. But the left's deep desire to override anything remotely resembling truth in favor of just the most absurd material possible, all it's really doing is it's off-putting half the United States. And yeah, SNL's ratings are good right now, but they're not doing themselves any favors when they go so far over the top that they're actually insulting to the members of the Trump administration, not just kind of gentle mockery or even harsh mockery or even kind of cutting mockery, but turning Kellyanne Conway into a sex fiend. or suggesting that Donald Trump is legitimately too stupid to do anything. There are certain lines that you cross at a certain point that are not, I'm not saying anybody should be shut down, but I am saying that it's counterproductive to what they're trying to do, and it's not funny. So that Kellyanne Conway thing is actually so far past the line, it's not even funny. Like, you watch that, and I can see the humor in the Leslie Jones thing, because half of it is about how she's an incompetent actress, but the Kellyanne Conway thing is so far over the top that it really is insulting to I think, women generally, actually. And we have to take a short break here and say thank you to our friends over at CISO. So, my wife and I have been watching a lot of material over at CISO. It's $3.99 a month, and you get as much comedy as you want. They have all the stand-up comedy that you could possibly want. They have all of the old episodes of SNL when SNL was actually good. They have all of the old British Office. They have backlogs of comedy, all commercial-free. And they have a bunch of new shows as well, some of which are really funny, too. They also have all, like Monty Python. They have 30 Rock and Parks and Rec. So if comedy's your thing, if you need a little bit of relaxation, then you go to CISO.com, $3.99 a month. And right now, if you go to CISO.com, if you use promo code BEN at checkout, you get 1 month for free. So you can try it out, see if you like it. CISO.com, and use the promo code BEN at checkout. You get 1 month for free, no ads. You can stream as much as you want. And it's got all of the stand-up as well. It's got Louis C.K., who's really funny. I'm a big Louis C.K. fan. It got all the late-night shows it has. So it's a one-stop shop for comedy. CISO.com, and then use that promo code BEN. Okay, final note on this. It's not just restricted to SNL, of course. The left has lost its mind over Trump. And what they're doing, again, is undermining their own credibility. So Andrew Sullivan, who has been irrelevant for at least 5 years here. He used to be over at The Atlantic. He used to be considered somewhat of a conservative. He was sort of a pro-Iraq war conservative. Andrew Sullivan, in 2008, he lost his mind, and he started talking about how Trig Palin, Sarah Palin's son, was actually Bristol Palin's son. He had this Trig birther conspiracy, and then Obama invited him to the White House as some sort of brilliant commentator, and now he is saying that Donald Trump is crazy.
Now, some politicians fib and lie. In fact, almost all of them do to some extent. But they always do it in a way that pays some sort of deference to reality. And what we've discovered is that in the last 3 weeks, this president, rather like he did on the campaign trail, simply insists that black is white, that things that we can see with our own eyes, like the size of his inauguration crowd, are not exactly what we're seeing. And is able to command his underlings to actually go out there and also say things that are empirically untrue. This is not about politics.
As the guy critiquing Donald Trump now? I mean, they're really dragging these corpses out of the woodwork to criticize Donald Trump. The guy who thinks that Trig Palin was not actually Sarah Palin's kid. It's actually Bristol Palin's kid. Rob Reiner. Like, now they're dragging a director who hasn't done anything good since Princess Bride out of the walls in order to criticize Trump. He calls Trump a cancer.
You're seeing all over the country with protests, and I've been at many of them, is nothing like what I went through in the 60s when I protested against the Vietnam War. This is everyone. It's not just people worried about being killed in Vietnam. This is everyone. And so we're looking at a cancerous presidency that we cannot allow to spread. And so many things come at us.
Okay, so that's pretty radical rhetoric. Again, cancerous presidents who we cannot allow to spread. So what are you supposed to do, kill it? I mean, are you calling for assassination? What's the implication here? Again, all of this does is really help Donald Trump. Okay, we're going to have to take a break over at Facebook and YouTube. If you want to watch the rest, you can go over to dailywire.com, become a subscriber for $8 a month. You can subscribe annually, and if you subscribe annually, then you get a free copy of The Arroyo, which is a great film by Jeremy Boring about the border crisis. It's about it's a fictional film, and it's about this rancher who lives on the border, and drug cartels are using his land as a thoroughfare and what he does about it. Really good film. dailywire.com to become a subscriber, and join us. We are the most popular conservative podcast in the nation.